Every time I see Biden speak, it says Delaware, Delaware, Delaware. He never leaves. I'm all over the country. I'm all over the place. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. President. Germany has said that Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader, was poisoned. What do you think should be done to Russia about that? What is your message to Russia about that? And how should the international community and the United States respond?
Well, I think we have to look at it very seriously if it's the case. And I think we will. There's nobody been tougher in Russia than I have. We get along. I get along with almost all countries. I get along with North Korea. Remember, we were supposed to be going to war with North Korea. If Hillary got elected, you'd be at war right now with North Korea. That would be a very messy war, a very bad war. Many millions of people would be killed. In the meantime, we've gotten along with them. We didn't get to war. Everyone said that if I was elected, I'd be at war in 1 week. It's been just the opposite. We're doing very well in Afghanistan, bringing the troops down, very low level. And other things are happening very interestingly. We have a great peace deal going on in the Middle East, actually, with UAE and Israel, and that's been received like probably very few things that many people have done. It's been very well received. And we'll be having other countries announcing soon they're joining that. And you're going to have a lot of countries in that. A lot of countries are saying, hey, why didn't you bring us in right from the beginning? They would have loved to have been there, but they want to be in. So we're doing a lot of things. I think that I was the one that alerted the United States and the world, Nord Stream 2. I said, why is Germany spending billions and billions of dollars to Russia to get their energy from Russia, and then we're supposed to protect Germany from Russia? What's that all about? And the sanctions and everything else. At the same time with Russia, we're right now negotiating a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, which is very important. It's a very important thing. To me, it's the most important thing. Some people say global warming. I don't. I say this is far more important. And we are the biggest. They are the second biggest, nuclear-wise. China's third. They're actually a distant third, but they're building pretty rapidly. And at some point we'll include China into those talks, but we're doing very well with Russia on nuclear non-proliferation. So I don't know exactly what happened. I think it's tragic, it's terrible, it shouldn't happen. We haven't had any proof yet, but I will take a look. It is interesting that everybody's always mentioning Russia, and I don't mind you mentioning Russia, but I think probably China at this point is a nation that you should be talking about much more so than Russia, because the things that China's doing are far worse. If you take a look at what's happening with the world, look at what happened with the China virus. Look at what they did by not keeping that within the confines of China. They should have kept it in the confines of China. Look what they've done to 188 countries all over the world, but you never ask about China. You're always asking about Russia. So I would be very angry if that's the case, and we'll take a look at the numbers and the documents, because we're going to be sent a lot of documents over the next few days. Mr. President, please, in the back.
Thank you, Mr. President. During the conventions, During the conventions, Kimberly and Don Jr. had an outreach to the Indian Americans community with a video called 4 More Years for You, which has got viral among the Indian Americans in the battleground states. So my question is, would Kimberly, Don Jr. and Ivanka Trump, who are very popular among the Indian Americans, would be campaigning on your behalf among the Indian Americans with your views on India-US relationship?
Well, I didn't understand everything you said. I know India, and I understood those young people that you mentioned. They're very good young people. And I know their relationship to India is very good, and so is mine. And Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, and he's doing a very good job. Nothing easy, but he's doing a very good job. We're talking, while we're at it, we're talking about China and India. We're going at it pretty good on the border, as you know. It's been very nasty. It's been a very nasty situation. And we stand ready to help with respect to China and India. If we can do anything, we would love to get involved and help. And we are talking to both countries about that. But I appreciate your nice sentiments. They think a lot of India, and so do I, and I think a lot of your Prime Minister. Thank you.
So my question was about Indian Americans. Do you think they are voting for you? Are they supporting something you
I do. We had an event in Houston, as you know, and it was a fantastic event. I was invited by Prime Minister Modi, and this was a massive. This was at where they play football, the Houston football team, and it was incredible. It was actually incredible, and the Prime Minister could not have been more generous. We have great support from India. We have great support from Prime Minister Modi, and I would think that the people, Indian people, would be voting for Trump. I also, as you know, went to India just prior to the pandemic setting in, because India's been hit very hard. Left really about a week before that, and we had an incredible time. What we saw, the people are so incredible. It's really an incredible place, an incredible country, and it's definitely big. It's definitely big, but you've got a great leader, and he's a great person.
Thank you, sir. Do you think China is bullying India?
I hope not. I hope not, but they're certainly going at it. They're going at it much more strongly than a lot of people even understand. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. Just to follow up on Alexei Novotny, you just said you haven't had any proof yet. Do you have any reasons to doubt the results from Germany?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't. I hear Germany has made it. Was it definitive or almost definitive? But we have not seen it ourselves. No, but we have not seen it ourselves. But I would certainly be okay with that. They want to do something. They want to take action. Shouldn't happen. But again, we are working very closely with a lot of countries on a lot of different things. We've taken stronger action against Russia than any other country in the world, as you know. I'll tell you, President Putin would tell you that right now. But the fact that I get along with Russia and that I get along, frankly, with everybody right now, I'm not getting along with China, but that's my choice. I don't like what happened with respect to the pandemic, with respect to the China virus. I don't like it at all. What they've done to this world and this country and Europe and every place else is terrible. But I do get along with President Putin. But I've been tougher on Russia than anybody else by far. If you look at the Obama administration, they were weak. Look at the land they gave up. Look at what happened with respect to Ukraine. Such a big part of Ukraine given up during the Obama administration. And I don't think they would have done that with me. I don't think they would have done that with me at all. We gave tank busters and they gave pillows. Did you ever hear that expression? They sent pillows and we sent tank busters to Ukraine. So, but with that being said, if we can do a nuclear non-proliferation agreement, that would be a great thing. No, but I would not be at all happy if that were the case, and it looks like it might very well be the case. I mean, based on what Germany is saying, that seems to be the case. John?
Mr. President, I want to ask you about something you said a while back and talked about many, many times. Back in 2015, you said that you didn't think John McCain was a hero, that you prefer people who don't get captured. In light of all that's happened since then and all you've learned, do you regret saying that? Is it something you wish you had not said?
I say what I say, and I never got along with John McCain. I disagreed with John McCain. You know that better than anybody, frankly. I wasn't a fan. I disagreed.
Well, that's it for us tonight. The president wrapping up what has been a relatively calm.
Far sooner than anybody else, including Dr. Fauci and others, wanted to. And Dr. Fauci was very nice. He said President Trump made a great decision. We would have far more than that. But maybe even more importantly, if I didn't close up, we would have, instead of the number that you mentioned or whatever it may be, or about 180, we would have perhaps 1.5 or 2 million deaths right now if I went a different direction, which some people wanted me to do, and I decided not to do it. We'd have 2 million deaths. Now, a lot of countries don't report their deaths. Obviously, China's not reporting because they had far more than we did. China had far more deaths than we did, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. But they don't report their deaths, or they don't report them accurately. And I don't want to embarrass other countries, but I can tell you there are other countries where the death toll is far higher than the United States, but they don't report deaths. We report it to a level that nobody reports it. We also do testing in cases. I watch your broadcasts and read your information, your media outlets very, very carefully. And I look at the word cases, and the reason, I say it 100 times, nobody wants to pick it up, but we do testing at a level that nobody ever dreamed possible. We have the best testing. We have by far the most tests. Actually, India, as per your question before, India is number 2. And they've done a good job, but they're about 40 million tests behind us. And they're a country of 1.5 billion people. Now, because of all these tests, we have far more cases. If we cut our cases in half, if we cut our testing in half, we'd probably have about half the number of cases. If we cut it down to levels, there are some countries that don't test. They test when somebody walks into a hospital. That's the test you get. They walk into a hospital, they're sick, that's your test. We have tested more and better, and you just see where we now have millions of tests coming in from a certain company that's done a fantastic job, and it's going to be anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes on the spot, very accurate test. But if we had much less testing, no testing, you wouldn't be reporting cases. But you saw this, I don't want to go over the statistics, you all wrote it down, but you see how situation with the amount of people that died in New York.
You can't just simply take out a major state in the U.S. It's still a part of the United States, New York is.
No, I'm just saying.
Take it out of the equation.
I'm just saying, New York has been in particular run, whether it's badly, incompetently, or whether it's unfortunate. And I appreciated Governor Cuomo saying that I've done a phenomenal job. And he said very good things. He said bad things too, later on when he had no real other choice. But if you took out New York from those numbers, you can multiply our tremendous success by a lot. But look, the bottom line is that the job we've done on COVID-19, the China virus, China plague, or whatever you want, there are a lot of different names, but it's been incredible. We've also helped a lot of other countries, especially with ventilators, because we are now, we build ventilators at a level that nobody ever thought possible. So
you don't see that forecast being accurate, the one that I cited to you.
Yeah, but you didn't hear me. If we didn't do what I said, we would be at 2 million deaths right now.
Taking that into account, it's just going forward.
No, they're not taking that into account. I had a choice to make. If we made the wrong choice, the number that you have, which is less than other countries, but the other countries don't report deaths. They don't report them to the extent, and they're not accurate. You know that, and so do I. Because you take a look at some of the things happening in certain other very large countries. First of all, we're a very large country. But you take a look at things happening with respect to the reporting of deaths in other countries, and I say, give me a break. So it's been amazing, but we made some moves at the beginning. China, big, Europe, big, but the biggest of all was closing it down, understanding the disease, and we did, and now we know it's the elderly, it's especially elderly if they have heart, diabetes, if they have problems. And we're watching it, and we're watching it very closely. And by the way, we're doing super testing with respect to that, super testing. But if we did it a different way, instead of the number that you said, but basically the number that we're at now is approximately 180,000, we'd be at 2 million people right now. Could be higher than that. Yeah, please go ahead.
The Russia vaccine, Mr. President, the
I
Russia
don't know anything
vaccine.
about the Russia vaccine. I'm not sure. We have our vaccine, and our vaccine is, I think it's going to be the standard. It's going to be great. These companies are incredible. They've come up with the great vaccines over the years, and that's the vaccine that probably most of the people in this room are going to want to take. Right?
Thanks, Mr. President. A quick clarification on my question. The $300 billion, is that from the Main Street lending program, or is that from a different part? Where are you?
It's sitting in an account, has not been spent, but we're willing to spend it. No, we're willing to spend it. I'd like to get approval from Congress. There's a theory that I don't have to do that, but I'd rather be upfront, and I'd like to get approval from Congress. Let it go directly to the people. It would be a great stimulus. It's actually more stimulus than we're asking for in terms of pure stimulus. This would be pure stimulus. I wouldn't have to let prisoners go, some very evil prisoners go. Like, think of it. The Democrats, in order to get what they want and in order to give us what they're talking about allowing prisoners to be released, prisoners that we don't want to be released. So in order that we get money to the American people, they want to say release prisoners and other things like that are very bad. And we just can't do that. We don't want to do that.
And then just to follow on John's question, I know you spoke earlier about the Atlantic story and you referenced the number of administration officials who have come out to support your...
No, we have 11 people. I was just told we have 11 people. There is nobody that feels more strongly about our soldiers, our wounded warriors, our soldiers that died in war than I do. It's a hoax. Just like the fake dossier was a hoax. Just like the Russia was a hoax. It was a total hoax, no collusion. Just like so many other things, it's a hoax. And you'll hear more of these things, totally unrelated, as we get closer and closer to election. The magazine is a failing magazine, and nobody called me. Nobody called me from the magazine and said, "Do you have a comment about it?" No, they just write whatever they want to write because they figure you can't get sued. You can get sued, but it's a very hard bringing lawsuits. But we have many witnesses, and it's just a continuation of the witch hunt so that it can hopefully affect the election. But the American people are too smart. So whether it's the fake dossier that turned out to be a total fraud, or so many other things have turned out. I've been under investigation from before I even got elected. These people have gone after me more than any president in the United States in the history of the United States. And it's a shame. It's a shame. And despite that, we've done more in the first 3.5 years than any administration. There's been no administration that's done more. When you add it all up, there's been no, despite all of the horrible political games that have been played, but there's nobody that's been able to do what I've done, and that includes the Great Mission Act, because what Obama passed was a joke. It was a joke, and we took it to a level that nobody thought possible, and that includes accountability. So it's a disgrace that somebody's allowed to write things like that. It could have been, a lot of times the sources aren't sources that don't exist, and sometimes the sources are just people that are disgruntled former so-called employees.
Well, my question is sort of about that. I mean, the notable voice that's been missing from the denials is your former chief of staff, John Kelly, who was obviously intimately involved in this. How are we supposed to read the fact that John Kelly hasn't?
I know John Kelly. He was with me, didn't do a good job, had no temperament, and ultimately he was petered out. He was exhausted. This man was totally exhausted. He wasn't even able to function in the last number of months. He was not able to function. He was sort of a tough guy. By the time he got eaten up in this world, it's a different world than he was used to, he was unable to function. And I told him, "John, you're going to have to go. Please give me a letter of resignation." And we did that. And now he goes out and badmouths. Now, there are people that are jealous. There are people that are upset that they're not here anymore. There are people that we've done an incredible job. The virus came in, and now we're doing an incredible job again. We're going to build it up bigger than it was before the virus came in. But I don't know that it was him. I haven't seen that. I mean, I see anonymous, but it could have been a guy like a John Kelly. Because just so you understand, he was a very, you look at some of his news conferences, what happened to him. He got eaten alive. He was unable to handle the pressure of this job. This job was a tough job. Mark Meadows doing a great job. But Kelly was unable to do that. And as far as that day, I mean, we have so much proof as to going to I went to Paris and the environs, and I was all set to go. They had a rainstorm, the likes of which you've rarely seen. The fog was so great. It was as dense as I've ever seen, and I almost knew that you couldn't use the helicopter. And because they had to drive through, I guess, certain parts of Paris, the Secret Service, who, by the way, we have people here that were on the trip. They're writing a report, unable to even think about it. And I said, "Nope, I want to go. I insist on going." It would have taken us forever. The Paris police said, "Please, you can't do this." They'd have to shut down various parts of Paris. And it just was not a possible situation. The helicopter would have been very quick. They had the helicopter all set, but the helicopter could never fly in that kind of weather. So, and that turned out, and that's all documented, by the way. We have all of the information from, and probably will release that information. But I think it's a shame when a second-rate magazine, I don't read it, I know very little about this magazine, but when a second-rate magazine can write things like that about somebody that's done so much for the military, can write things like that and get away with it where you actually ask questions on it, it's a disgrace. And you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And let me just tell you, I watched the interview with Sleepy Joe Biden, and he didn't ask questions. You didn't ask questions like that. Read the questions you asked. They were like meant for a child. Those questions were meant for a child. Smiles on faces of reporters, not like you and you. There were smiles on the report. What do you think? Take a look at those questions that they asked him.
Okay, all right. Let's say that the president. Let's give the president the benefit of the doubt here. Let's say that it was foggy. Let's say the weather was bad. How come all them other leaders made it to their destination? They got to set up the same type of security whenever they drive through town as they do the president of the United States. I'm just asking a question. Maybe he's correct. Maybe he can validate because of the weather. I thought he was under the gun towards flying too much. I thought maybe he had jet lag or something. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I thought it was unusual for a bunch of the dignitaries to wind up in one event and our dignitary didn't. But, you know, this guy here kind of does what he wants to do anyway. But there's a lot of mixed messaging. A lot of confrontations that surround him in his morals and his achievements towards whatever grafted him, whatever inspired him, whatever gave him the desire or the motive for him doing what he has done. There's a whole lot of controversy that's surrounding this guy that I can't remember that much federal military controversial subject surrounding any other president other than Donald Trump. I cannot remember anybody else that so much confrontation, so much anarchy, or whatever word you want to use, commotion surrounded a president. Maybe he's being attacked. Maybe it is the witch hunt. Who knows? But I know somebody that does know.
Meant for a grown-up, they were meant for a child. So I just want to tell you, it's a disgrace, because you look at what I've done for the United States military. I love those people. I've gotten them pay raises when they didn't get anything near what I've been able to do. And I've rebuilt $2.5 trillion. I've rebuilt the United States military. Now we're including Space Force. Nobody's done more for them. And then when I have to have a report read like that from a third-rate magazine that's not going to be in business much longer, I look at that and I think it's a disgrace. And then when I watch Biden getting asked questions that are really meant for a child to answer, anybody could answer, and I look at the level of question that you people ask, I mean, honestly, it's disgraceful. So I want to thank you all very much. We appreciate it, and we're doing very well. We're very, very proud of what's happened with respect to the economy, and I think that before the election, you're going to see a third quarter announced. The third quarter will be at a level that our country has never seen before. Next year, we're going to have a year that was better than last year. And I feel very certain it'll be better than last year. It'll be the greatest year we've had. And the whole reason this is working out this way is because we set a foundation for this country like we've never had before. So next year is going to be a fantastic year. But remember this, the third quarter is going to be announced sometime prior to the election. by a few days, actually. And I think it's going to be record-setting type numbers on GDP and other things. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Stars and stripes in the decision.
Okay, that's President Trump just wrapping up a White House press conference that started out pretty sedate. It's about the economy, adding 1.4 million jobs, 8.4% jobless rate. Then it got heated. The president started to push back in the Atlantic magazine story, alleging he called fallen soldiers, quote, losers. Now even John Bolton disputes that. The president is also saying to reporters, you're not asking Biden tough questions. Also went after his former aide, John Kelly, with really tough words for John Kelly, his disputes with John McCain. He covered a lot of ground right there. He also said of reporters asking Biden softball questions, those are questions that are meant for a child. He did say that Biden has been soft on Antifa and left-wing anarchists. So this is a story that we want to get to right now. We're going to get to former NYPD Commissioner Howard Safir on what happened, what the president was just talking about, with something that's really hitting the campaign right now. What the president was just talking about with Joe Biden and Antifa matters to this story. The suspect believed to have shot Trump supporter Aaron J. Danielson in Portland, Oregon, Michael Rhino, he's shot dead after reportedly firing up to 50 rounds. Federal law enforcement tried to arrest him last night just southwest of Seattle. Let's get to Howard Safir on that story right now. Howard, what was your reaction to that story?
My reaction was one that was predictable. You're talking about violent criminals and Antifa and Black Lives Matter, who are well-armed, well-financed, and totally anti-police and anti-civilians. They are all about rioting and vandalism, and Black Lives Matter should be worrying about the over 5,000 African Americans who were killed by other African Americans. So I'm not at all surprised that this individual was well-armed and resisted.
We just came out of a press conference, not a lot of questions about what happened and what's going on in 17 U.S. cities seeing unrest. Rhino was basically shot dead after he gave an interview to Vice magazine claiming that he had no choice but to shoot at Aaron Danielson, when video of that shooting shows that they literally were trying to hunt down Trump supporters to shoot at them. I want to ask my team if we can show some of these interview clips. Are we ready to roll? Let's show it.
I feel it's important that the world at least gets a little bit of what's really going on, because there's been a lot of propaganda put out there. I had no choice. I mean, I had a choice. I could have sat there and watched them kill a friend of mine of color, but I wasn't going to do that.
Okay, now, again, the footage that we just showed of the actual shooting, Commissioner, shows they were saying, we got one here. Your reaction?
Well, it's just part of the false narrative. It's the false narrative that Trump supporters are well-armed and going out to riot and cause problems. It's not who you're seeing in the streets. You're seeing people who are generally from out of town, of the cities where the riots and the vandalism are taking place. I saw this clip the other day of 12 Black Lives buses lined up in a parking lot ready to go and move people into cities to do rioting and vandalism. Somebody is financing this. This is not about what's going on in this country. This is a false narrative. The fact is, the majority of African Americans and the majority of white Americans in this country want to take care of their families, go to work. They don't want to burn down businesses or loot. But what happens is the mainstream media presents it as if it's something all over the country, and it certainly is not.
You know, Commissioner, there's footage surfacing of where rioters might be staying at a sizable compound in Portland, Oregon. The question is, why isn't Portland shutting this down? We have 74 protesters now facing federal charges related to rioting in Portland, Oregon. And we have also the DOJ moving fast to basically arrest 2,000 people in 9 U.S. cities charged with homicide and weapons charges, adding to the chaos and the violence. I'm not sure if we've got that footage of the compound in Portland, Oregon, but it's like a mini tent city. So it's in plain sight. What's going on there?
What's happened is the Democratic mayors of these cities have ceded their cities and their law to these violent vandals. And I do know, having been former associate director of the U.S. Marshal Service, that the marshals will go out and arrest these people and bring them to justice. But if the Democratic mayors are going to let the precincts be taken over, let them take over whole neighborhoods as we saw in Seattle, we're going to need federal intervention if these individuals don't live up to their responsibilities, which clearly they are not.
You know, Senator Rand Paul says that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, instead of condemning left-wing rioters, they're blaming Trump. And Kamala Harris, we pointed out, has asked Twitter followers to donate to a fund to bail out individuals, protesters, but it's going toward, alleged felons getting bailed out. We have that going on this side of the Democrat Party, and then we have about 6 or 7 mayors in Minnesota now supporting President Trump. The Democrat St. Louis mayor saying, "Stop the violence, police need more funding." So there seems to be a split right now when it comes to the mayoral level of the Democrat Party and with its leaders. What's your reaction?
Well, it's encouraging to hear Democratic mayors, at least some of them, stepping up to their responsibility. This whole idea about defunding police is ridiculous. What's going to happen is there's going to be long response time. There's going to be no backup, and more people are going to be victims of criminals. And if you look at what's happened in this country, and we talk about the 9 unarmed African Americans who were killed in 2019 by police, and some of those are questionable as well, but think about the over 5,000 African Americans who were killed by other African Americans in this country. I don't hear Black Lives Matter talking about them or about the 3-year-old kid who was killed on Father's Day.
Commissioner Safer, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you on, sir. Come back soon.
Always good to be with you.
Okay, coming up, the story we were covering for you last night and this week. This story, the salon owner who's been in a fight with Nancy Pelosi, she's now standing up. She's firing back big time against Nancy Pelosi, calling Pelosi, quote, beyond shameful. That it is Nancy Pelosi who owes the entire country an apology for getting a blowout in her hair salon, blatantly violating the rules when that salon was shut down due to COVID-19. We've got even more examples, you won't believe them, of what we found.
And doing whatever you can possibly do outdoors as opposed to indoors. If we do that, we should get through the weekend okay.
That is absolutely critical. And we're now 7 months into this crisis, as you know all too well. I want to play for our viewers what you said at the early stages of this in March. Let's listen to this.
Looking at what we're seeing now,
But there are also signs of reform here, because this clash and its reaction shows just how powerful this citizen-made evidence can be. Those videos can change minds, wresting power from the powerful, launching movements. Power in the people who bore witness, who recorded, sometimes at personal risk, to upend years of state power backed by force. Returning to that point from Will Smith, racism is not new, but filming it is. America's, of course, been through all this before. There was tons of brutality in the Jim Crow South. One civil rights strategy, though, was to get it documented and broadcast. If it could not be immediately physically stopped, Martin Luther King reasoned, then it must be documented so America would be forced to face itself. After the Bloody Sunday Selma marches, Dr. King spoke about this specifically, saying, "We're here to say to the white men, we no longer will let them use clubs on us in the dark corners. We're going to make them do it in the glaring light of television," which required pressing national outlets and the northern, largely white press to put it on television.
With me in the studio is the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, who's just come from conducting this evening's march in Selma. Dr. Abernathy is Dr. Martin Luther King's second in command.
The picketing pressure the president said he would not be blackjacked by was partly on the sidewalk immediately in front of the White House.
Governor, last night you commended the people of Alabama for restraint during yesterday's march. And last night a white civil rights worker was killed. How do you feel about it this morning?
Well, of course, I feel badly. Many black leaders at the time called out the press for its complicity in disappearing the facts and the horror. Then there were artists like Gil Scott-Heron, who would go on to say, famously, the revolution will not be televised, as he spoke of the limits of instant replay and police brutality on tape.
There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
The revolution will be live. Well, times change, so does technology. Then people didn't have the means to record and broadcast. Now many do. And while any revolutionary song is open to interpretations, Gil Scott-Heron later said something worth reflecting on now. His song meant that the most profound revolution is the one in your mind.
We were saying that, like, that the thing that's going to change people will just be something that you see, and all of a sudden you realize, I'm on the wrong page. I've got to get in sync with everyone else to understand what's happening in this country. But I think that the black Americans have been the only real diehard Americans here. We're the ones who marched, we're the ones who carried the Bible, we're the ones who carried the flag, we're the ones who tried to go through the courts. And being born American didn't seem to matter, because we were born Americans, but we still had to fight for what we were looking for.
You know, it takes a special kind of vision and patriotism to embrace the struggle for civil rights as membership in the club of diehard Americans. Now, we don't know what Mr. Heron or Dr. King would think of this ongoing revolution today. More of it playing out on our screens, televised and viral, and sometimes unavoidable even to those who've been trying to avoid and deny these American realities forever. But we do know right now the revolutionaries are out there, not only marching and organizing, but also taping even in the moments of deepest tragedy and violence, exercising their diehard American rights. And it's worth listening to them and their work so that we might someday curb the need for this grim civic duty. And they get the final word on this subject tonight.
My fear was to be here where I am today. But at the same time, I have this feeling, because I know that was an injustice, what I saw, and I want to come forward.
I didn't do it for a pity. I didn't do it for fame. I did it so that the world knows that these police are not here to protect and serve us. They are here to assassinate us. They are here to kill us because we are black. I posted a video last night and it just went viral. And everybody gasped. How I feel, I don't know how to feel. And I just see him on the ground. I'm like, what is going on? I pull my camera out. And they killed this nigga. And I was right there. I was like 5 feet away. And it's so traumatizing.
Where can it? I'd like to weigh in on what we just said and what we just expressed. I realize that it has been said that there is 2 different justice systems here in America. That there's a justice system for the white and there's a justice system.
Claiming he made insulting comments about fallen America.
A justice system for the black. I can understand the reason why the black race, the African American race, sees it like that. And the reason why is because there's more well-to-do white people in this country than it is well-to-do black people. But I've looked into it even deeper to the point that it's not a white and black issue going on right now, but rather than a rich and a poor issue going on right now. It's about the hases and the has-nots. Obviously, the ones that has don't want to sacrifice what they've already earned, regardless whether it was legitimate or illegitimately, to the ones pertaining to the has-nots. And the way that the system is set up right now, pertaining to all our jobs going south, being, I guess, outbidded, either in Mexico or South America or China or wherever. It's become extremely, extremely difficult for anybody to get a job over here in America, especially if you are black. unless you have a very, very good, high, talented gift. Now, whenever I'm talking about a high, talented gift, I'm talking about construction workers. I'm talking about heavy operators, people that drive bobcats, bulldozers, cranes, concrete pumping trucks. I'm talking about people that is very, very good whenever it comes to mechanical or body work. I'm talking about electricians, plumbers, iron workers, farmers, truck drivers, those who are businessly minded to be able to operate a 1,500 man capital factory and still keep things afloat and still make a profit at the end of the year and be profitable for the state or the local government. My opinion is that this is about the rich and the poor. There is two different justices. If I would have had the money in every occurrence that I had a close scrape with, regardless whether it was in Wheeling, West Virginia in 1991, regardless whether it was in the state of Kentucky in 2009, or the state of Kentucky in 2013, the state of Oklahoma in 2009, the state of Tennessee in 2012, as well as 2017. If I would have had good, proper, sound representation, to have hired the right attorneys. But whenever you're talking about hiring Johnny Cochran type attorneys, you're talking about $250 an hour. Who can afford $250 an hour other than the powerful, other than the rich? Just the other day, I had 6 spark plugs that I needed changing in my automobile. 6. 3 on the front, 3 on the back. It's a 6-cylinder. It's a Honda. I call up my mechanic. What do you charge me after me going and purchasing the plugs? He quoted me a price of $50. I'm like, oh man, what the heck? And I bought the plugs? Yep, that's what it's going to cost. I said, well, just put that on standby for right now. Put that on hold. I made a telephone call to Victory Honda in Jackson. I asked them the same question. If I purchased the plugs, what would you charge of putting in 6 spark plugs? $110. $110. You see the difference between the body shop industry versus the mechanical industry here in Tennessee is a difference between daylight and dark. I should have gotten involved in the mechanical industry years ago, and I wouldn't have had to have worked near as hard and still got paid twice the amount of money. But whose fault is that? That's my fault. That's my fault. But whenever you have body shop rates here in the state of Tennessee that are just now exceeding or maximizing into a $56 an hour rate compared to mechanical rates that are probably $110 to $120 an hour rate, there's really no comparison. You get, if you're a labor, twice the amount of money if you're taking off of a head or putting on a generator or an alternator on an automobile versus cutting a car completely in half and putting a family back in it to drive down the road safely. I talked to my mechanic again after me agreeing to let him do the job. He said, Dennis, don't feel like the Lone Ranger. I just got some plugs for a Land Rover the other day. that my cost was $24 a plug, and that was buying aftermarket plugs in an aftermarket mechanic shop. He said if I would have went through Land Rover, through the dealership, they would have probably been $30, $35, possibly $40 a plug. I'm thinking to myself, my God, what has happened in the industries that we call state-of-the-art industries? Like I said a while ago, it's about the poor man, the working man, versus those that's already gotten to the top of the ladder. Those that has gotten to the top of the ladder that are retired, are fixing to retire, you don't hear a lot of grumping out of them. But those that are on the streets right now protesting and being agitated by all this is basically your millennials, are those that's just right there at the millennial race of those that realizes that they don't have no competition towards a future such as the generations before them. It's really, really sad because, like I said, it's not a white and black issue, it's a rich and poor issue. Please, let's listen to some more of this before ending on 2020 year Labor Day weekend.
Allegedly calling them, quote, suckers and losers. His rival Joe Biden seizing on the report, citing his own son's service, and saying, if true, Trump is not fit to be commander-in-chief. Also developing tonight, the Antifa activist takedown. Portland on edge after U.S. Marshals shot and killed an Antifa demonstrator wanted in last week's murder of a pro-Trump supporter. Authorities say he was armed and trying to flee, just hours after he said in an interview the shooting was justified, that he was protecting a friend. The dangerous turn, the frightening scene as emotions boil over in New York City's Times Square, a car driving through a crowd of Black Lives Matter demonstrators. As the Daniel Prude homicide investigation continues in Rochester, what his brother told us late today. Protesters and police clashing there, pepper spray deployed, 7 officers suspended. Tonight, the police union says they followed protocol. The holiday virus warning this Labor Day weekend, health officials saying what happens this Labor Day will set the course for the fall. The images already coming in, large crowds gathering at the shore. The ABC News exclusive, the NRA insider speaks out. The former chief of staff of CEO Wayne LaPierre alleging members' dues went to fund LaPierre's lavish lifestyle, including trips on private jets. Pierre Thomas standing by. And mother's miracle. The Houston mom-to-be diagnosed with COVID 26 weeks into her pregnancy. Tonight, she shares her story of survival, a powerful message to other moms facing the same fight.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Hey, good evening. It's great to have you with us as we head into the Labor Day weekend. I'm Tom Yamas, in for David. We begin tonight with the firestorm erupting over a damning report accusing President Trump of making insulting comments about fallen American troops. The Atlantic, quoting anonymous sources, saying the president referred to them as suckers and losers. President Trump fiercely denying the allegations over the last 24 hours. A furious Joe Biden, whose late son Beau served in Iraq, tearing into the president today, saying if the comments are true, he isn't fit to be commander-in-chief. The White House pushing back hard, lining up current and former members of the administration to deny the report and defend the president. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl leads us off.
Joe Biden came out today with his angriest denunciation of Donald Trump yet, pointing to an article in The Atlantic alleging that the president referred to American war dead as suckers and losers.
If the article is true, and it appears to be based on other things he said, it is absolutely damnable. It is a disgrace. It is so un-American. It is so unpatriotic.
The article, based entirely on anonymous sources, portrays the president as someone with contempt for military service. It describes a November 2018 trip to France. The president was supposed to visit a World War I cemetery where American troops are buried. But the White House canceled the visit, saying bad weather made it impossible for the president's helicopter to fly. The Atlantic article alleges Trump said, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." The president heard about the story while on Air Force One last night. As soon as he landed, he summoned reporters to the dark tarmac and angrily denied it all.
I would be willing to swear on anything that I never said that about our fallen heroes.
Multiple people who were with the president on the France trip, including Trump critic John Bolton, said today on the record that they never heard the president call dead American troops suckers or losers. Joe Biden said he finds the story believable because of the president's past comments, including what he said in 2015 about John McCain.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
And Biden said the allegations in the article show Trump is not fit to be commander-in-chief.
How would you feel if you had a kid in Afghanistan right now? How would you feel if you lost a son, daughter, husband, wife?
The president firmly denied the story again today, saying those who serve in the military are heroes.
It's a fake story written by a magazine that was probably not going to be around much longer, but it was a totally fake story.
All right, John Carl joins us now from the White House. And John, President Trump speaking with reporters just moments ago, and you asked him if he regrets insulting John McCain's military service.
Tom, he told me that he respected McCain, but he made it perfectly clear that he has absolutely no regret for what he said about him, saying that he is not a war hero, that he preferred people who aren't captured. As the president told me just minutes ago, quote, "I say what I say." Tom?
Jonathan Karl leading us off tonight. John, thank you for that. Next, the deadly confrontation with the...
Was President Kennedy the one that got assassinated? Was he considered a war hero? Was Abraham Lincoln the one that got assassinated? Was he considered a war hero? They got shot. They sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice. The enemy got to them. Does that mean that they're any less or any more greater of being a hero than what they was if the occurrence never happened? This is where Donald Trump don't see eye to eye with a lot of people in regards to making statements about McCain. He over-dramatizes things, and he don't put appreciation on the right foot where appreciation should be. And because of it, it's looked upon by a lot of people as it being an act of betrayal. It's looked upon as being backstabbing. It's looked upon as being treasonous in making such statements against people that's fought and sacrificed so much.
Suspected killer in Portland, Oregon. U.S. Marshals shooting and killing an allegedly armed man. Just hours earlier, he appeared in a televised interview, admitting to killing a pro-Trump supporter, calling it self-defense. The city today marking 100 days of protests, bracing for more turbulent days ahead. ABC's Matt Gutman in Portland tonight.
Tonight, officials in Portland calling the latest violence a tipping point.
This is an all-hands-on-deck moment, and I think we would all agree that we need to work collectively to stop the violence in Portland.
Overnight, U.S. Marshals shot and killed the man wanted in last week's shooting death of a pro-Trump protester. The Marshals swooping in to arrest self-described anti-fascist Michael Raynell in Washington State.
It just sounded like 4th of July going on. There was just probably anywhere from 20 to 30 gunshots.
Officials say he brandished a gun and tried to flee in his car.
There was shots that were fired into the vehicle, and the subject fled from the vehicle, at which time there was additional shots that were fired.
Raynell was pronounced dead at the scene. We learned of the shooting as Portland endured its 99th consecutive night of protests.
They pushed the crowd back, made what appears to be at least a couple of arrests.
Raynell's killing came just hours after Vice News released this interview with him in which he called the killing of pro-Trump activist Jay Danielson self-defense.
Totally justified. Had I not acted, I am confident that my friend and I'm sure I would have been killed.
Danielson was part of a pro-Trump caravan of vehicles wending through Portland last Saturday, clashing with Antifa and BLM protesters.
All right, Matt Gutman joins us now live from Portland. Matt, you've been reporting about the tension there. You've seen it firsthand, and there is concern from law enforcement about what may happen tonight. Tonight and tomorrow, Tom, and we just spoke with the head of the police union here who said that tensions are at a boiling point. And when I asked him what the chances were of this weekend passing peacefully, given that right and left-wing activists were flocking into the city, he said slim to none. Tom. All right, Matt, you and your team stay safe there. Now to the growing anger and arrest over the death of a black man in police custody in Rochester, New York. Protesters there clashing with police, and here in New York City, a car driving through Black Lives Matter demonstrators. Tonight, the police union defending the 7 suspended officers there in Rochester. ABC's Trevor Ault is there.
Tonight, emotions boiling over on the streets of New York City. Police sources say a counter-protester's car drove through a crowd of Black Lives Matter demonstrators who had gathered in Times Square to protest the death of Daniel Prude. There were no injuries and no arrests. Ongoing protests in Rochester, police firing pepper balls and pepper spray to disperse the crowds. At least 8 people arrested overnight and 2 officers injured.
These people was out here peaceful protesting on my brother's behalf. And I appreciate their time. I appreciate their compassion. They don't give a damn about that.
The outrage sparked by disturbing body camera footage released this week.
Put your hands behind your back.
Prude seen naked and in the midst of a mental health crisis when officers say he turned combative, spitting at them, the officers placing a hood over his head, pinning his neck to the ground, the medical examiner later ruling his death a homicide. The mayor suspending 7 officers, saying she'd been misled by the police chief.
Chief Singletary never informed me of the actions of his officers to forcibly restrain Mr. Prude.
Chief Singletary has ordered internal investigations. And tonight, the police union president saying each of the officers followed protocol the night of the incident and are all cooperating with the investigation.
The state attorney general's investigation into Prude's death is ongoing, and Tom, it appears in anticipation of more protests tonight, Rochester police have grabbed riot helmets and barricaded several blocks of city streets. Tom. All right, Trevor Ault, right where those protests may happen tonight. Trevor, thank you.
If you listen back up, it said that there is at least 17 cities right now that is under siege. 17! These 17 cities are not under Biden's watch, but they're under Donald Trump's watch. That is a fact, Jack.
We move on now to the Labor Day warning about the coronavirus. The nation's top health experts say what happens over the next few days could determine the entire fall season. The U.S. now reporting more than 187,000 American lives lost. The CDC projecting an additional 30,000 COVID deaths before the end of this month. Crowds lining the Jersey Shore today, many doing their best to maintain social distancing, others not. And Northeastern University in Boston now expelling 11 students for violating COVID-19 policies. ABC's Marcus Moore is in Miami Beach.
Tonight, the kickoff to Labor Day weekend. 3 days, experts warn, are critical in determining how this country battles the virus this fall. New Jersey today taking a big step, reopening indoor dining and movie theaters at limited capacity, but the governor with a blunt warning.
We will not tolerate any violations, and we will not be afraid to come down hard and make an example of those who think the rules don't apply to them.
So much at stake. In Nevada, Melanie Zaragoza is staying close to home.
I think it's going to go up because it seems like it happens every holiday.
Doctors urging Americans to avoid the behaviors that triggered a spike in coronavirus cases after Memorial Day and 4th of July. The Surgeon General on GMA.
During these holidays, people come together for barbecues, for picnics, they travel. And that sets us up for spread of a highly contagious disease like COVID-19.
There is worry about the risk of indoor spread at get-togethers or the spread in bars, like this crowded one at the University of South Carolina. Just one of at least 10 schools with more than 1,000 students already infected. Dr. Anthony Fauci warning that several Midwestern states are now at risk of a surge.
We don't want to see a surge under any circumstances. but particularly as we go on the other side of Labor Day.
The president suggesting there could be a vaccine by Election Day.
We remain on track to deliver a vaccine before the end of the year and maybe even before November 1st. We think we could probably have it sometime during the month of October.
But
hypocrisy.
ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
A former top lieutenant is officially declaring war on perhaps the most powerful and best-known lobbyist in Washington, NRA CEO Wayne LaPierre.
Gun owners across America should be horrified by what I saw inside of the NRA.
In his new book, Inside the NRA, Joshua Powell describes an organization rife with corruption.
It is this, incredible mess of malfeasance and self-dealing.
He accuses LaPierre and other executives of misleading dues-paying members of the NRA and using their money to finance LaPierre's lavish lifestyle, including $542,000 for trips on private jets.
It is an abomination. It's to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in wastage.
It's possible crimes were committed, is what you're saying.
If fraud is a crime, that's correct.
But Powell is under investigation himself for the same alleged malfeasance he says he's trying to expose. He's named in the New York Attorney General's lawsuit seeking to disband the NRA that alleges evidence of illegal conduct and inappropriate spending for which the NRA says he was ultimately fired. He denies the allegations. The allegations make you seem like part of the problem, though.
I understand that, and I don't believe that's the case.
Powell says he now supports some of the gun control measures he says his old boss worked tirelessly to block. He claims the NRA said no to any proposed solutions to the nation's gun violence problem it felt would restrict Second Amendment rights.
The NRA does have blood on its hands.
The NRA calls Powell's accusations pure fiction and says that before he was fired for allegedly misusing funds, he endorsed everything the NRA was doing. And tonight, the New York AG's office tells ABC News that Powell's attorney has reached out, offering to cooperate with their investigation. Tom?
Pierre Thomas with that exclusive interview tonight, and you can hear much more of Pierre's interview next week on Good Morning America. We do turn now, we are seeing the first new images of Jacob Blake since being shot 7 times in the back by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Blake in his hospital bed appearing on video for a court hearing, pleading not guilty to domestic abuse charges unrelated to the shooting. His father says Blake is out of intensive care and doing better, but still can't move from the waist down. And news tonight about the economy and American jobs. The Labor Department reporting the U.S. added 1.4 million jobs in August, unemployment dropping to 8.4%. And there's still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Friday. The blistering heat wave, triple-digit temperatures heading into the holiday weekend, and the big concern in California. Can the power grid handle it? Plus the incredible survival story. Get this, a man pinned by a tree for 4 days, lucky to be alive. Stay with us. Dangerous holiday heat wave in the West already causing concerns about whether California's power grid can handle it. A flex alert issued statewide asking residents to conserve electricity from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. throughout this Labor Day weekend. As temperatures soar into the triple digits across the region, possibly breaking records and raising new fears about that fire threat. And when we come back, a desperate search in Beirut after the possible sign of life in the rubble. And with Jeopardy set for its return, news a quiz show legend will play a part. What host Alex Trebek said about the greatest of all.
So if I was
all thanks to SoCal.
Just about there.
Leading new
AstraZeneca may be able to help. Time now for the index, and the desperate search continued today after rescue teams discovered possible.
My doctor prescribed expected shortness of breath.
Index, and the desperate search continued today after rescue teams discovered possible signs of life in the rubble of the Beirut blast. A sniffer dog named Flash, trained to detect humans, alerting to crews a specific building. Local reports say a heartbeat was discovered. So far, no signs of life. It's been 1 month since that explosion leveled the port in the Lebanese capital, killing at least 180 people. A Minnesota man cutting wood is lucky to be alive after becoming pinned down by a tree for 4 days. Authorities say Jonathan Sepelka was found by authorities and his ex-wife during a welfare check in a ravine 100 yards from his home. Both legs trapped, but conscious and alert. His family says in a GoFundMe post, the 59-year-old Iraq war veteran and high school English teacher passed the time by breaking the hours into 5-minute segments along with prayer. And Jeopardy is back with a twist. The show returning with new episodes Monday for its 37th season with Alex Trebek back as the 80-year-old host continues to battle stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Joining him will be Ken Jennings, 74-time champ who claimed the greatest of all-time title in January, whose duties will include presenting special categories. Trebek joking, don't worry, he will still be the host. And when we come back, some of the best news of the week, a heartwarming update about a pregnant mom who beat COVID-19 and what happened next. Make sure to stay with us.
Your mission, stand up to moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis and take it on with Rinvoq. Rinvoq, a once daily pill, can dramatically improve symptoms. Rinvoq helps
for cooking mains and side dishes.
before. They were the teachers.
They're giving us some pointers on, bend your knees here, pull your back straight there.
And something shifted.
Once they came out of them uniforms, they was regular human beings,
1, 2, 3, roll Chicago!
They were just 8 guys in a boat.
Attention! Go!
Let's go! Is it overly simplistic to think that something this small can make a difference?
No. No, it isn't. The world would be a lot better place if there was more Archers in the world.
Arche is working now to bring rowing to more underserved communities.
I don't want to be in war with the Chicago Police Department. I want us to work together to serve our communities. It won't change the system, but it's a start, one cop at a time.
Kate Snow, NBC News, Chicago.
The documentary is streaming now on Peacock, NBC's streaming service. That's Nightly News for this Friday. I'm Jose Diaz-Balart. Thank you for the privilege of your time, and good night.
Today's headlines can be hard to understand, and a lot of kids have questions, so we started a newscast for them. We hope your family will watch Nightly News.
That'll work for this particular segment. I like what the commentator just said. Thank you for the privilege of your time. Obviously, there's a lot going on in America. There's a lot going on throughout the world. The best that we can do for one another at this point in time is to pray. Pray and continue to pray for the victims and for each other, and to hold each other up and to treat each other as good moral citizens. Thanks again from the Windmill Ministries, and good luck to all of us on this 2020 Labor Day weekend, that we can all hopefully enjoy a little bit of time towards the holiday. Shalom.